We will quickly also hear from Parliament. And as you know, there's already a parliamentary intervention. We don't know what the outcome will be, but of course, a voice that we have heard on this matter from Parliament so loudly is a member of the Parliamentary Committee on Communications, Honorable Samuel Nete George. Please, let's welcome him. You're still on Joy 99.7 FM and on your Joy News. Please keep clapping for him till he gets here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. And a very good morning to everybody here. Thanks to Imaniga and Multimedia for this platform. Let me say a very good morning also to all those who are listening to us on radio and watching us on TV. I would continue along the same protocol observance mode and say protocols observed. I'm just going to try and break this down as simply as possible, because maybe not everybody who is listening to us would understand the technicality of Prince Crystal's presentation or as an industry player. The ordinary Ghanaian just wants to understand what is going on, what's all these things about Star Times, what does it mean for the Ghanaian person? And that's what, myself as a member of parliament, that's what my interest is. Like I said to the minister last weekend, there is no confusion in the minds of anybody who is an industry player, be it GIBA, be the Parliamentary Select Committee. We're clear in our minds. The project that is being launched this morning in Dansoman, the 300 villages, satellite villages project, is a DTH project. The platform that Star Times is again being contracted to expand is DTT. DTT and DTH are completely different platforms, and so nobody's going to confuse the two. Now, on the issue of the DTH, and I'll touch on that briefly, Prince Harry has done a detailed presentation on that. I have a huge challenge with our appetite for accepting freebies and not looking at them properly. I mean, I believe it was Mr. Kofi Bentil, who in his speech spoke about the need to be careful of Chinese gifts because they put you on your toes when you take gifts from them. We're giving a waiver of $3 million to Star Times to bring in equipment. Did the Ministry of Communications do the basic due diligence to determine how much are the equipments that are being brought in before you give them a tax waiver of $3 million? I serve on the Parliamentary Select Committee on Communications, and I'm putting it on record that our committee did not review that document. Because it was a tax waiver agreement, it went straight to the Finance Committee. The finance people will just look at figures. I'm looking at the breakdown of what is being brought into the country. 32-inch TV screens for 300 viewing centers. Let's do simple mathematics here. Even if a 32-inch TV screen costs you $500, 300 of those is going to cost you $150,000 US. Someone should please be taking down the figures and we'll do the calculation together. $150,000. The set-top boxes, which are the decoders that they're bringing in, for the 300 centers, it costs about $18 on the market, but let's even peg it at $20. So 20 times 300 is 6,000 Ghana cedis. Now we're told that there's going to be an additional 6,000 set-top boxes given to families and homes. So an additional 6,000 boxes times $20. That will come to what? $120,000 US. The solar-powered projectors, they go for around $600 on Amazon. But let's even peg them at $1,000 because maybe they are bringing in high-spec powered, solar-powered projectors, and they're giving 2 to each of these viewing centers. So each one is going to cost $2,000. Each center will be $2,000 times 300 centers. That's $600,000 US. 150,000, 120,000. That's what? 270,000 plus 600,000, 870,000 plus 6,000, 876,000. It's less than $1 million. Even if you add freight, the cost of equipment for the 300 villages is less than $1 million. But we're giving them a tax waiver, which should be about 15 to 20%. on the cost of the items, because that is actually what a tax waiver is. We're giving them $3 million. So are we thinking as a government? Are we thinking as a people? Are we not occasioning financial loss to the state? Because a tax waiver is effectively taxpayers' money that you're giving to the recipient of a tax waiver. Again, I've heard the ministry say that when we say they're doing this for a foreign entity and they're not doing this for a Ghanaian player, we're lying or we are being untruthful. And that KNET, who is building the DTT, has also received a tax waiver. Now let's break it down again and show the untruth in that assertion by the Ministry of Communications. KNET built the multi-TV platform 10 years ago. The ministry, either in this government or in the previous government in which I served in, has never given KNET a tax waiver. Not the NDC administration, not the NPP administration. KNET is enjoying a tax waiver on the construction of the DTT platform. The DTT platform does not belong to KNET. KNET is simply a contractor for government. The DTT platform is a national asset. And so if KNET is bringing in equipment to build a platform for government, and you give a waiver on taxes for equipment for government's own assets, have you given a waiver to KNET? In fact, KNET is incurring costs on this, because unlike in the Star Times case, where you've gotten Parliament to grant a waiver even before the equipment come in the case of KNET, what the government asked KNET to do was to pay the taxes and then later come for a refund. Now, what KNET had to do was to go and borrow money commercially from a commercial bank at commercial interest rates of over 20%, pay the taxes, and government is paying KNET only the taxes without paying KNET for the interest on the loan that they took. So KNET, the Ghanaian company, is actually incurring a cost for paying duties to government. But the Chinese company is not being asked to front load and pay and come for a refund. The Chinese company is getting it up front. So when we speak about preferential treatment for the Chinese against the Ghanaian, we have solid basis to make that claim. Now, the issues, and I want to leave the DTH there, but just the last point on that before I go into the DTT. We as a country have a national policy, and this policy straddles 4 presidents: President Kufuor, President Mills, President Mahama, and today President Nana Addo. In 2006, the formation of a national digital migration policy started to take shape under President Kufuor. The decision was taken that Ghana as a nation was going to move to ensuring that we had 100% penetration of digital terrestrial television. That was the policy decision taken under President Kufuor, which, even though I do not belong to his political party, I think was a sound technical position that was taken in the interest of our republic. Because it does not make economic sense or technical sense to want to push television, universal access to television, on the back of set-top boxes. In fact, technology does not support that. And so technology supports DTT across the world. And so taking that decision that as a nation we're going to move to DTT was a sound technical decision taken by the Ministry of Communication under President Kufuor. President Mills came in as president and continued along that line. President Mahama has also continued along that line. It appears under our current dispensation that we're having a rollback of about 12 years of national policy and national direction, because you appear to see a government led by the Minister for Communications now pushing for us to invest in satellite technology, in DTH. When for the past 12 years, successive governments have looked at a digital terrestrial roadmap. That is what we talk about stakeholder consultation. If the government, based on the advice of its current minister, decides that the 12 years of DTT migration that we've been working on is a wrong decision and that we want to change national policy, it is not the role and prerogative of the ministry alone to take that decision. That decision must be taken in consultation with all the stakeholders: the National Media Commission, the Media Foundation for West Africa, GIBA, the Parliamentary Select Committee, even the public. Because the public is on the receiving end of any such national policy. And that is why even as governments, all successive governments have policy dialogues with the citizenry to discuss policy initiatives. The ministry has failed to engage in any such policy dialogue. The last policy intervention the ministry made was the 12th of February 2018 meeting with all the stakeholders. In fact, at that meeting, the position the ministry espoused to us was that they wanted to finalize the framework agreement on DTT. So if after meeting with us in February 2018, on the 12th of February, where you told us that you want us to have a subsequent meeting to finalize the draft policy for our DTT migration, you've taken you've had a change of mind. The right thing to do is to bring the stakeholders back and let us know that we are now moving to a DTH platform. And then you ask yourself, why would government have just spent, right now the KNET-led DTT platform, thanks to the variations, because technology is not static, technology is dynamic. Between 2015 and now, there have been variations on the project that has brought the project cost to a little over $100 million. $100 million of Ghanaian taxpayers' money has been invested in the DTT platform. You have not even started reaping 1% of the benefits of that platform, and you want to scrap it and then begin to push a new agenda, which is DTH. Now, the problems for me here appears to be what seems to my mind to be an executive affront on the judiciary. And I'll explain that. When the Ministry of Communications decided to abrogate the contract with Star Times China, and you see, we keep talking about Star Times. Let me just clarify. And Samson Ladi tried to make that explanation in his initial remarks. People have tried to play politics with this, and I think that this is a very dangerous thing to play politics with. We shouldn't play politics. This is apolitical. This matter is a technical issue that affects Ghanaians. People say that the NDC contracted Star Times, brought Star Times into the picture, and then you terminated a contract with Star Times. Now the NPP is bringing Star Times back in, and you're saying Star Times is bad. No. Let's set the record straight. Star Times China has never ever taken part in any tender process for any DTT platform in this country. The company that was contracted on the 11th of April 2012 to build the DTT platform, that put in a bid and won, is called Star Times DTV Ghana Company Limited. And that is a 100% owned Ghanaian company, owned by a gentleman who is a media player called Mauli Hedo. Mr. Mauli Hedo is a known player in the Ghanaian TV space. And so, Mauli Hedo's Star Time DTV Ghana Company Limited is the one that won that contract and did not have any links at the time with Star Times China. In fact, it took them 6 months to do an assignment of their contract to Star Times China, because they had to go through all the legal and economic and financial considerations and negotiations to assign that contract. Again, let us be clear in our minds. I've put out information which has been challenged, that Star Times China failed to access the EXIM funding because they could not meet the technical requirements that were set not by the Ministry of Communications in Ghana, but by the EXIM Bank of China. And people have asked me, how is that possible? If you contracted a loan or you entered into contracts with them based on a certain terms, how come that became a problem? The original bid from Star Times DTV Ghana came with a financial option from CDB, the Chinese Development Bank, not the EXIM Bank. So when Mauli Hedo's company put in a bid, it came in with a bid or financing option from the CDB, the China Development Bank. When they sold the contract to Star Times China said they could not secure that funding again from CDB, and they would now secure funding from China EXIM. China EXIM gave a different set of requirements as against CDB. And it is those new requirements that Star Times China could not meet that led to their inability to access the funds for 2 years. Now, when that happened and the contract was terminated, when a new international competitive bid was announced and the RFP was put out, Star Times China was invited to take part in the bid. But because Star Times China is unwilling to take part in any competitive bid, the reasons are as good as your guess. The reasons are as good as your guess. They failed to take part in that bid. But what happened for Ghana is that the original contract was supposed to cost us $118 million US. People keep saying $95.6 million, but it was a loan. $95.6 million with an interest of $22 million. So that comes to $118 million. That was the true cost of that contract. When we did an international competitive bid, it dropped the whole loan, the whole project amount to 83, a little under 85 million US dollars. So Ghana saved $36 million by going through a competitive bid. If our ministry today wants to do an expansion, which again, as a technical person, I disagree. You don't need an expansion of the DTT platform as it stands. But even if you want to do an expansion, why don't you subject that expansion to international competitive bid and get the best value of... Again, when I say I disagree with us expanding the DTT platform, are we going to say that because there are applications for digital licenses or TV licenses, we will continue to expand the platform? So if after we increase it to 100 and there are more applications, are we going to increase again? What is the size of your market? TV stations survive on the back of marketing and advertising. What is the size of our market? If you go to statistica.com, the figures are there. South Africa's market worth 1.2 billion US dollars in 2016. The South African population is 59 million people. They have open free-to-air, they have only 17 free-to-air channels in South Africa, with a market that is worth 1.2 billion. The UK has a population of about 70 million people. Their market is worth 24 billion US dollars in 2016, thanks to the Premier League. They have only 70 free-to-air channels. Ghana's market is worth 196 million. That is about 1% of the UK's market. Our population is not yet 30 million. That is less than 50%, just about 45% of the UK's population. And we already have 48 licensed FTA channels. How competitive is it? If you're not careful, you're going to see in the next 2 to 3 years what is happening in the banking sector. You have to see consolidation of media houses, because already media houses are beginning to collapse. It's true. Established media houses that we know are beginning to struggle. And if you think about this country, if you love this country, you would want to protect the media, because the media is the fourth estate of the realm. They keep us in check. And then I ask myself one question: why would our ministry pull out of arbitration with China Star Times? Because in 2015, when a contract was terminated, and I get the signal my time is up, so I'm just going to wrap up here. In 2015, when the contract was terminated, Star Times China commenced legal action in the courts here in Ghana. Justice Kumsin delivered judgment and actually awarded cost of $50,000 against Star Times. Star Times then appealed and then decided to proceed to the International Commercial Court in London. In that court again, it has been established unequivocally that Ghana did have a claim to terminate that contract. Star Times further made a request for $200 million in settlement. And how can you be making a claim for $200 for a contract that was worth $95 million? And then the court says that fine, based on clause 41.1.3 of the contract, Star Times is actually due some recompense if they can prove that they've done any work. Star Times claimed in 2016 that they imported machines for the DTT platform into Ghana. The Ministry of Communication at the time's contention was, show us a supplier's invoice. When you brought machines into Ghana, you'd have paid duty. Show us the duty that you paid. Star Times then claims that, oh, you know what, we've moved the machines to Nigeria. That is not a problem. Show us where the machines are in Nigeria. We will send technical people from NCA to go and evaluate it. Up till now, 2 years on, Star Times has been unable to show us any supplier's invoice for any equipment. They've not been able to show us where those equipment are in Nigeria. They've not been able to show that they paid any duty to import any machines into Ghana. So on what basis do you then pull out of such an arbitration that you are winning? And the terms of the settlement is that Star Times should come and do an evaluation of the KNet built DTT platform. And on the basis of their report, you will give them a contract. In wrapping up, I'm just going to state one thing. We do not hate China. China is a key player in the world geopolitics. We are not against China. We don't hate China. We only love our motherland, Ghana, more than we do China. And I hope our Minister of Communications will love her republic and the taxpayer better than she seems to love China. Thank you.
Thank you.